Hey, and welcome to Vivit Talks. So today I'm joined by Stephen Walters from X Matters, who'll be talking at this year's Unicom event on DevOps on the 16th and 17th of July. He's going to be talking about, are you orchestrating your feedback? So before I introduce him, I just wanted to let you all know, if you're interested in joining, why not apply for one of the 10 free tickets that we're giving away for this great Unicom event. If you fail to win a ticket, you can still join by using the code Vivit20. Okay, so now without any further ado, let's hand over to Stephen Walters, the solution architect from X Matters, who will tell us a little bit more about what he's doing at the upcoming event.
Hi, Jonathan. Hi. Glad to be here. What do you want to know? What? Ask away.
So I'm really excited about having you at the Unicom event. So, could you tell us a little bit about, for those listeners, what kind of topics you're going to be covering on the 17th of July?
Yeah, I really want to touch on some of the areas that I think I'm a bit of a champion for many of the areas that are neglected when it comes to DevOps and the implementation of DevOps. I'm a long-time champion of those areas. We're technologists and we work in a technology industry. And as a result, when it comes to trying to implement DevOps, the first thing we turn to is technology. More often than not, this means going onto Google and finding what's the latest CI tool, CD tool, test automation tool, all of that kind of thing. And then we implement all the tools and we plug them all together, install them, configure them, integrate them, and we go, yay, we're DevOps, fantastic. It doesn't work like that. True DevOps, automation is only one small percentage of what needs to be achieved in order to implement it. So I'm very much a champion of those other areas. I very much believe in the CALMS model proposed by Jez Humble, culture, automation, lean, measurement, and sharing. And so therefore, if all you're doing is the tools, all you're doing is a big capital A, and then a little tiny c, a little L, a little M, and a little S, if at all. So I've always been a champion on that cultural side, and also very much on that well, in fact, on all of those kinds of elements. I'm also very much a proponent of the three ways, which came from Gene Kim and through the Phoenix Project, the DevOps Handbook, which he co-wrote with Jez Humble. And in the three ways, it talks about flow, getting it from that conceptual idea down to something that actually delivers business value in a production environment. That continuous experimentation, which comes through from an agile way of working and agile teams and being able to quickly iteratively define and identify changes. But the third element is feedback. And this is an area which is being seriously neglected. And I saw in an interview recently, actually, with that Jez Humble did, where he spoke about the lack of thought that goes into feedback as part of any kind of DevOps model. And that's fairly typical because within the business industry today, the concentration is on delivering actual value. It's about getting something out as quickly as possible. So there's a lot of concentration on that flow, getting that out as quickly as possible through that CI/CD pipeline. The problem is what people don't realize is that that's great if you have no issues whatsoever. You will get it out perfectly every time. But if you do that, why are we bothering with automated testing? If we know we're going to be 100% correct every time, then why do we bother with automated testing? We bother with automated testing because we know it's not going to be right first time. There's going to be issues somewhere along the way. And those issues are going to occur in various environments. As part of our CI pipeline, we capture them early. But then there's other forms of testing which, as mature as we want to be, doing as much testing, shift left as possible, we are going to have later forms of testing, and it's natural as we progress from legacy waterfall kind of methods into these DevOps and agile and iterative methods that we have user acceptance testing and security testing and performance testing, and we typically have separate environments. And then even when we get into production, and really when you think about it, if part of our aim, our goal in DevOps is to just have a production environment, and we, for that A/B blue-green capability, however you want to call it, you've got one environment where you're dropping things in, and it doesn't matter what that testing is, whether it's very early phase testing or right up through into production, you've got a potential issue there, something that you've got to deal with. And when you're dealing with it, that's what feedback is. That's what that feedback is. And if you always have feedback because you've always got defects and incidents, then the time it takes you to correct your feedback, to react to your feedback, to do something about it, then the longer that takes you in terms of your actual delivery to value. Because you're going to have those feedback loops. You're going to have those moments where, uh-oh, we've got a problem, we need to fix it. And that takes time. And the problem is that we're still very manual in our ways of working around feedback. We look at these things in a very legacy kind of way still, the way we want to fix these defects. What happens? Oh, we've got a great big severity 1 issue. Right, let's pile everybody into a war room. That's 30 people in that war room, taking them away from all the development work that they were doing and all that busy work that they were doing. And let's bash it around the room for a bit. And about 3 or 4 hours later, we think we've got a way of approaching it and fixing it, but let's try it and let's test it out. And what happens if that doesn't work? Let's all get back into that room again. And this is taking valuable resources away from actually delivering value, the job that they're there to do to actually deliver things as quickly as possible. So you need to limit and remove a lot of that toil and waste that comes from feedback. Now, the thing is that within a CI/CD pipeline, we have excellent ways of working. We've got great tools, we've got orchestration, we've got ways of working. But that's because it's very logically based. The way a flow goes through, you always know the precondition coming in is that everything that happened beforehand is okay. So you do a preconceived action, maybe with a few configuration details changed, and then your end result is that it either works or it doesn't work. The problem is that with any kind of defect management or incident management, it's always going to be more reactive. And so if it's going to be more reactive, you have to be more adaptive. And the way that you actually implement that correction has to be more adaptive. So, to come back to the original question, what I'm going to be talking about, it's about DevOps. It's about that feedback within DevOps, and it's how you orchestrate and automate your feedback to remove that toil and waste. Because as much as you don't want to think about it, it is an important factor in actually delivering value as quickly as possible and ensuring that value remains there in place and continues to operate as efficiently, as effectively, and with as much uptime as possible.
Well, that's just music to my ears. That was fantastic in the sense of, it's kind of everything that I've wanted to hear about DevOps is kind of, you've answered there in the sense of this feedback loops and stop being reactive. And also this kind of adaptive IT, which, is really important because, the idea when they started, the Gartners and Forresters talked about multimodal, part of it was, how do you get through that pipeline? How do you get the value creation through as quickly as possible? And, so I can't wait for the session. So your title is, Are You Orchestrating Feedback? It's going to be at 2:10 on the first day of the Unicom event. And X Matters are a gold sponsor there as well for the event. Could you tell us a little bit about what X Matters does and, where it all kind of, how you help your customers really?
X Matters as a company, we're very much about client value and about client value creation and ensuring that our customers can maintain and run their business as efficiently as possible. So what we provide a software, a SaaS solution, software as a service solution, sits there on the cloud. And what this does, this tool, typically within incident management, I use incident management as an example because that is where we've historically come from. We have worked within that ITIL world. We understand the legacy world that people have come from, and we understand the move that they're making. And it's very much in that incident management kind of realm that you have monitoring tools and they will trigger an alert. Something will go on. And in the modern world, that probably happens at 2:30 in the morning and somebody has to roll out of bed because they've had an emergency call. And then what they have to do is they have to, probably go and make a cup of coffee first of all to wake up. But then they go in, they open up their laptop, they look at the monitoring system, they have to search through, find this problem, And then when they found a problem, find the information about the system that's got a problem, what was the last change that you made, what are the possible causes, what other things are going on. Going through all of these other systems, maybe about 6 or 7 other systems, to get all the information you want. Then you've got to plow through that information to potentially find the root cause before you've actually identified what the problem is in order for you to go and fix it. And by then, your 2:30 in the morning has now become 9 a.m. and the business is starting to get up and running, and your system is still down. What XMatters does is it actually takes all of that toil and that waste out of there. It provides you with the capability to, the moment that monitoring tool creates an alert, XMatters picks up the information about that alert, takes a package of information, then interrogates those other systems where you need information that's supporting it. So it will find out from ServiceNow or Jira or Remedy or whatever tool you've got, your service desk, what other outstanding tickets you've got, what the last changes that was committed, what happened on your last Jenkins job that you ran, what's in Bitbucket or Git, whatever the last changes that you committed. And it will bring that information together into a single source, so that instead of rolling out of bed and then spending the next 4 or 5 hours over several cups of coffee trying to disseminate all that information, the job's been done for you. You can roll over, look at your mobile phone, find the message with all the relevant information, and then get a series of actions. So it's about something else I'll talk about. It's about enrichment of the data. It's about enacting on that information, and it's about enabling the user to actually do something about it. So the moment that message is there, you can hit it, it goes off, and you can run automated batches. You can tell it to go away and completely rebuild the system if you need to, or you can, if it's a major incident, raise that severity 1 issue to get the right information out there. And instead of having that war room with 30 people where you all gather them in and take people away from their jobs, it helps you to identify who the right people are. So you get the right people at the right time to actually look at that particular instance and to find the root cause of it. And then, having that integrated with collaboration tools such as Teams and Slack, it means that your teams can work together, and XMatters brings all that together. And what's more, something else that we found that's actually an interesting side effect with many of our customers is that because they've come from that legacy world where an operations team has been, for example, using ServiceNow and MS Teams for their comms, and the development teams are using Jira and Slack, there's that constant issue of, it's generating a silo wall between the two, that great big silo wall that still exists between dev and ops. What XMatters can do is it can ensure that the messages and communications that are going on between Jira and ServiceNow are the same and consistent, so everybody's getting the same message. Likewise, through Teams and Slack. So in other words, your teams can still continue to use the tools that they know and love, but XMatters just sits there in the background and ensures that the information is coordinated and helps you to operate really in a collaborative kind of way. So that's what XMatters is about. It's about having that, that adaptive way of working, being able to work with various tools, bringing teams together, breaking down those silo walls, but also improving the speed. So it's about delivering cadence with quality and ensuring that, that customers basically return to value as quickly as they can.
Oh, it sounds awesome. It sounds like it's game-changing tech. And I must admit, I was looking through just your integrations, and obviously you mentioned things like Jira and ServiceNow, but, things like Dynatrace and New Relic, you got the Microsoft kind of platforms that you mentioned as well. You've got all the integrations. So you're bringing that kind of view of trust, haven't you, across and transparency, which is kind of really important. And I think where we did the last DevOps round table, we explored some of these kind of challenges, which was really exciting. And I think what you're highlighting here is this kind of ops dev approach where actually operations are really involved, and the amount of teams that I speak to at the moment who kind of say, okay, well, actually they're not as involved. This gives them that ability that it's whatever they're doing, everyone else has got visibility within the organization. And like we said, what Dan North kind of described as DevOps, as the, blurring the lines between developer and operations, is actually, that's that perfect example. So you've got your IT operations management tools, you've got your service management tools, your incident management tools, and you're bringing them all together to actually help the organization, like you said, bring value to the end customer by being able to be more reactive to this, and even maybe a bit proactive, and go off there, get your root cause analysis, get all your logs that you need. So you're not having to start, you've got like a starter for 10, and you're not having to wait for, to go around and hunt all this information, get access to all these different logging platforms, and, actually be able to start doing something to help. So I think it's fantastic what you're doing, and it'd be, what do you see as the next iteration along here? You mentioned things like chat ops, and maybe, you've got things like intelligent process automation coming down the line, and all those kind of RPA tools. Do you think you're going to expand out to some of those as well?
Just like anything else in the market, we have to be reactive to it. It would be very easy for me to say, yes, we're going to do this, or yes, we're going to do that. But who knows how the market is going to change? I mean, who knew that 9 months ago, the whole market was going to change because of a pandemic, which, I mean, let's face it, that completely destabilized the IT market. 9 months ago, the focus of any IT organization was around innovation. It was about just how much money can we spend on getting better value. Let's spend that money. Let's actually invest in our organization in terms of providing new capabilities and new functionality and new ways of working and doing things. Within a matter of a few months, as this pandemic hit and people were suddenly forced to work in new ways, having to work remotely, we were putting more stress on remote working systems and how we communicate with each other. And suddenly the shift moved from innovation to stabilization. The whole of the IT organization has been more concentrated on that. Suddenly it's a case of, we've got less people, but we've still got to try and do the same amount of work. And we've got to do it while also all of our supporting functions are really being tested to the limit. So that has changed a lot. And I think that's certainly going to be a continuing focus over the next few months. As organizations move from innovation to stabilization, they want to be able to move back to innovation as quickly as possible, but you've got to do it with the thought that in 12 months' time, we could be going through the same thing again. So you've got to have that kind of consideration. And I think something else that's coming out of what's happened over the last few months is around security as well. And I'm going to come back to this about the term. You heard me mention this in the last round table we did. I'm going to be controversial. I hate the term DevOps. I do not like it. I do not like it. And there's a principal reason why, and that's because people think it's about development and operations, and that's it. And then we get terms like DevSecOps and DevBizOps. And I'm sorry, but if you're not including security, if you're not including the business as part of your DevOps solution, you are not doing DevOps. It's about an enterprise-wide implementation. Everybody is involved in it. It's across the entire enterprise that this particular piece of work has to be done. So when I'm looking forward as to what is going to happen, I think there's going to be far more around stabilization. And certainly we're seeing that in terms of how busy we are at the moment, in a lot more organizations coming to us saying, we need to ensure our systems have greater uptime, greater stabilization, dealing with those issues that suddenly occur that we don't know how to deal with them. But then there's thinking forward as to, well, how do we then deal with security matters when we have security issues that are raised? How quickly can we adapt to those? And it's not also just because of that, it's because of things like Gdpr that have suddenly come along. It's that ability that when an incident occurs that is potentially you in breach of Gdpr, you have to react as quickly as possible. Because the fact that you said, well, it took 24 hours to pin down the issue, that doesn't matter to the people who are going to come after you for GDPR. If you say, we reacted as soon as it occurred, and we were able to batten that down within an hour or 2 hours, that is what impresses them. That is what makes them realize that you're actually taking it seriously around data protection. So for me, over the next 12 months, I think you're going to see more activity in that kind of area and around that security and that capability. And again, this is where the adaptive incident management side of things comes in, and that adaptive side of things, because as much as we talk about AI ops, and AI ops is potentially the future, the way that we're going to go in terms of, having these automated systems deliver that are supporting capability for us, it's going to take time for AI ops to learn what it has to know, for it to be in a position where it can do it. So for me, it's important over the next 5 years that we as people understand our part of this automated, orchestrated tool chain in that adaptive element of it, because we're the bits that make it adaptive. We are the important part of it that helps in that decision-making process. So for me, I think there's going to be more around that kind of thing, around that kind of stability, around security, and around that being adaptive in that way. I think there's certainly going to be more in that. In terms of ourselves, X Matters, our part in that is that we have to be adaptive as well. I mean, we do distributions every 3 months, and we operate in a DevOps kind of way. And I know what's coming up on the roadmap. We've got a new release coming out right now. In fact, actually, it will come out at around about the time that we're doing the Unicom sessions. And then we've got other releases later. And we talk about the content that's going in those releases, but each time the content that's in there is not just determined by what we think or how we are going to do things, it's what our customers feed back with. A large portion of our backlog comes from our customers saying, look, this is something we see as being important in the future. This is something that we need in order to operate and support our business. And we listen to that, and we have to be adaptive to that as well. Again, another form of feedback, how you have to be adaptive to that feedback and react to it quickly. So, where we will be in 3 months' time, we'll probably be doing a lot more around that. We'll probably be providing greater flexibility and controls around incident management. 6 months' time, who knows?
Oh, it sounds really exciting. I was looking at the flow build designer tool you've got, and it did feel like, you're going into this no code, low code kind of component, which then, like you said, puts some of that kind of next generation capabilities, like what you've seen with Power Automate and your intelligent process automation tools. So it allows people to drag and drop onto a canvas the kind of activities. So it's putting the person and with the domain knowledge at the center of it, and really gives that visibility. And of course, there's an autonomous component of that. Once you've set up those flows in Flow Designer, you can then automate some of those activities and provide greater flexibility. But obviously, going back to you for a second, your history within this domain. You've been at Borland, which have made tools that are especially now part of the Micro Focus kind of landscape. Some of the solution integrators you've been working with, some of the large investment banks that we've both worked at, and then things like these global SIs, building these kind of DevOps capabilities. So you've got that whole plethora of experience within doing like you said, the quote DevOps. But I think it's really interesting to find out how you became part of this journey, and what excites you the most about the industry.
Again, it's the adaptive side of things. I mean, I'm going to show my age here, but I mean, I've been in the IT industry now for nearly 30 years. When I first started in development, we were using the term RAD, Rapid Application Development, which basically meant change whatever you want, whenever you want it, as soon as possible, and don't forget about the testing. It was a terrible time. It really was. But, it was the way that we were working at that time. And my first step really into process improvement, at the time I was working for Britannia Building Society, which has since become part of a cooperative. And I'll never forget how I actually got the particular role. I was working as a developer. I'd been supporting on the test management side of things. And a program director with a particular program that they were struggling with said, we've just had an audit done, and we've done really quite well, except for this thing called configuration management. We don't know what it is, but we know it's something to do with a tool called PVCS, and we've seen on your CV that you've worked with it before. Do you want the job? I went, yeah, okay. And it was as simple as that. But it wasn't as simple as that. quickly getting into that role of a configuration manager, you suddenly start to realize that the impact of that configuration management has at the center of so many things. It's not just about the version control, it's how that version control links into the whole installation management, around the build management capabilities, around your deployment management capabilities. And it was because of that, and because of that opportunity that Britannia gave me at the time, and that the managers there gave me at the time, and they gave me that free rein, which is very much that DevOps ethos. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You know what you're doing, so you go ahead and do it. And that really gave me that opportunity to really tackle it and really start to learn about it and get into it. I mean, as a result of that, I mean, I actually created a system which was using MS-DOS scripting with install shield and Visual Basic macros in Excel to actually create a CI pipeline. I had something which was scripted, which would go into the PVCS system and check out the code based upon a label, build it, package it under install shield, and then implement it overnight into the test systems. And I was doing this 26 years ago. And it was, so, I was dipping early into that world. So all of this just felt like a natural progression from me. And I think as well, something else that maybe my age and my experience brings into this is that I've experienced that. I'm accredited in CMM, CMMI, TOGAF, ITIL, Prince 2. I've been through all of these frameworks. I've seen these legacy frameworks. I understand how they work. So when I see an organization that is using those kind of legacy methods and wants to move into a more modern DevOps way of working, I've been there. I've got that experience. I understand how difficult it can be. It's not easy. And that experience really has come through from pain. I've seen those times when they've implemented the tools and gone, oh, there we go, everything's great. And it isn't. The biggest challenge with any organization is culture and cultural change. And that's why I've always been a champion for that. Changing culture is about how a group of people, always more than one, how they interact and how they work together. So it's about ways of working within a group of people. And that means that if you think of that magic iron triangle of people, process, and technology, it's about the people and the process side of things. And that really is the most difficult part of any kind of transformation, whether it was CMM, CMMI, or Agile, or or DevOps, or any of those kinds of things. It's always the culture that's the most difficult. And I think there was a Gartner study back in 2015, I think it was, that they did, where they actually asked several DevOps transformations, what was the biggest blocker or cause of an issue for you in terms of a DevOps transformation? And it was 5% was the information, 8% was the technology, which means in total around, information technology, that's only 13%. The other 87%, well, 37% was process, 50% was people, process and people. That's the culture. 87% of DevOps failures are down to culture, cultural issues. And this is why I champion in that kind of area. And it might sound strange. I'm working for a tools company that provide tools. But as a tools company, we have this mantra. It's about the best value for the client. We're not about to dump our tool on a client and say, right, take your current processes, stick it all in there, and everything will be great. We don't sell a universal panacea. What we sell is something that actually enables you as a client, as a customer, to do the best that you can. But in order to do it, you have to make other changes with it as well. I was at a talk in London several years ago, and I heard one guy speak. I think he was with Skelton Thatcher, and he gave a great talk about how they spent a month with a company looking and examining their processes, and then they gave a half-hour presentation to the board afterwards and said, right, what you need to do is you need to change your culture, you need to bring in lean processing here, you need to change and adapt to these things, you need to change this way of working, blah, blah, blah. And at the end, the CEO turned around to them and said, that's all well and good, but we know that DevOps is just about bringing in tool automation. So just do that and we'll be happy. At which point, The most northerly member of this two-party team from Skelton Thatcher turned around to him and said, "So at the moment you're doing beep and you want to do beep faster." Which I think summed it up really nicely. Obviously, I've just beeped out the bits that, in his way in which he said things, but that summed it up nicely, is that if you don't deal with those other areas of the culture and about the lean engineering, then you are just going to be automating all of your toil and all of your waste, and you're just building toil and waste faster, which means you're actually going to be making the situation potentially worse. So you have to deal with those issues, and you have to deal with them in balance as well. And that's something that we at XMatters are very considerate about. When we're engaging with a client about bringing in our tool, we're having discussions with them. We're providing value stream mapping workshops so that we can look at their processes and identify them and help them to identify, okay, this is the way you're working at the moment. This is the way you could potentially work in the moment. What's manual that you could potentially automate that helps to reduce that toil? What are the measurements and the metrics that are important to you in terms of measuring your capabilities? Because if you don't measure as part of DevOps, how do you know you're improving? You have to measure before, you have to measure after, you compare. That's how you know you're improving. Without measurement, you can't do that. So it's important to have all of those elements in there. It's about having that cultural change. It's about having the lean engineering. It's about doing the measuring, and it's about sharing that across the organization as well. Start with a small iterative change or development within one area, but make sure that when you get those successes, you let others know about it as well, because there's no point just containing that success within one area. So, again, I come back to that CALMS model, which is something that we definitely want to promote, and that concept and that idea that you can't just do this with tools alone. You have to have all of those other elements within there. And that's how we provide value to clients.
Oh, it sounds fantastic. And, for those people who are listening, who kind of want to get in touch and maybe tap into some of your expertise, or even find more about XMatters, what's the easiest way for people to kind of reach out to you and contact you?
Okay, we're on the web, obviously, through the XMatters site. You can get in touch with us that way, the usual things through the contact us and everything like that. I mean, we're very open kind of guys. Please just reach out. If you go to our website, actually, you can download a free trial of the software. Get it, download it, try it out. Obviously, it's not the whole bells and whistles, but it's a good way of introducing yourself and getting a deep dive into what it is and the capabilities. And the moment you've got that trial, there'll be somebody there who can assist you, who can help you. If there's anything you want to know, any questions you've got to ask, then you just reach out to us. Of course, the other way is to go to the Unicom seminar and come and see us at the virtual booth and come and talk and ask us questions. We're not just at Unicom, we're at a lot of other events as well. But that's the one that's coming up soon. So come along and have a conversation with us. We're more than happy to have that. I've got to say that the guys I work with, the team I work with at XMatters, are just amongst the best team I've probably ever worked with in my entire career. They really are an amazing group of people. And I don't mean just here in the UK and within the EMEA region, I mean globally. As a global team, the culture within this organization is partly what has drawn me to it and why I'm so happy working here. And I know that our customers are happy working with us in that very same way, because, we're treated as family. That's what we are. We're a big family here, and we like to take care of our customers in that respect. So if you want to feel a bit of that tender touch and care, reach out.
Brilliant. Well, what I will do is I'll include on the show notes your LinkedIn address, so people can just reach out to you directly as well. And of course they can come and see you on the 16th, 17th for the Unicom event, talking with your session, talking about DevOps. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot to learn on that session. And also, just to add to the podcast, we're actually giving away a number of free seats as part of this podcast promo. So, submit and then you'll get to see Stephen in person. Or virtually. So again, it's been an absolute pleasure having you, and we'll have to get you on the show after you've done the presentation to tell us a little bit about how it went and also share some more wisdom.